it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful empowered harmonizers. And we're zooming in and focusing in a little bit more in depth in terms of understanding covert narcissist traits, particularly that of entitlement. Entitlement basically means just that, themselves giving the granted title thereof. The entitlement trait, thinking that they deserve and are superior to, above and beyond, the needs, the requirements, the feelings of others. So an entitlement basically just means I deserve without having to do the work, without the credit, for any other reason than I say so. So when we hear about perhaps like an entitlement, with government, feeling like entitlement benefits, because of this, I deserve that. And I don't have to do the work. I don't have to put up a just, reasonable cause. I just deserve this. So entitlement basically means just that. But it is oftentimes in the covert narcissist relationship, it is what is unspoken, the unspoken contract of entitlement through fewer words than not, basically keeps this a pervasive quality in the relationship. And furthermore, not only to understand this quality, but how is it expressed in a covert narcissist. So entitlement oftentimes is expressed in passive-aggressive or withholding attributes, qualities, or behaviors or decisions. For example, that of the momentum of communication. When we look at the communication style of a covert narcissist, oftentimes it's very unpercussive. It is very sort of a daunting, or I don't want to say heavy-handed, but one-way communication basically that is heavy-handed, stating, it is my way, that is it, period, end of story. This is how it's going to be. There is no openness. There is no receptiveness. There is no room for discussion. There is no place for discussion. So it's just kind of like a slow, somber drumbeat. This is how it goes. And then everyone else is expected to follow into suit in this entitlement declaration. And when we look especially at the momentum of this, there is no response. In other words, there is no interaction that is accepted by the covert narcissist. It is this entitlement attribute which causes this in their communication style. So you run up to a wall. Basically, there is a non-presence. There's a non-existence for receptivity in the covert narcissist, and this creates a huge dysfunction. If a relationship is to function, there has to be receptivity. There has to be this momentum. There has to be this give and take. There has to be this acknowledgement of you, where you're coming from, and your strengths and validation of such, and being able to be in the presence thereof. And so this creates a real void, or what is oftentimes like in music, you do have to have the space, the silence within the notes to make the music. But within a covert narcissist relationship, this becomes too much like the end of the music. It becomes like the end of the piece. It becomes the end of the movement. It becomes the end of that, that horn, what am I trying to say? Just that, the horn, whatever. I can't, it's on the tip of my tongue. But in other words, that part of the music kind of stops. The strings stop, the horns stop, the drum beats stop. And so you have to kind of pick up and become very percussive and really begin to pull on the weight, pull the responsibility, love enough for two, love enough for five. In other words, you need to then fill that emptiness or that space. But the problem is, in the entitlement, is that nothing else will compare to help to eradicate the silence or the needs. In other words, if this individual has permeated the ethos or feeling or culture of the relationship with the superiority, one is always going to feel intimidated or dwarfed by this individual. Their communication. In other words, it is their values which herald as basically like the undergirding entitlement, or like, in other words, you cannot shore it up. There's no matter what you can do, it won't quench, it won't satisfy, it won't acquiesce. There's always going to be this sense of superiority, which keeps them, a little bit untouchable, uncommunicatable, unknowable. And so the entitlement, and really, not only the anger that you can have at this, because if you stay in the anger, you're staying attached, you're staying controlled thereof. And as the viewer so aptly stated, his luck completely turned around when he left the building, when he left the country. In other words, he cut strings entirely. He burned the boats to going back. In other words, he sailed on his venture, he burned the boats, there is no going back. He made it, he is on the promised land. And it has nothing to do with this individual. In other words, he is completely free and liberated. He is able to enjoy the profits, the resources that come with this awareness. He's able to experience the abundance, the prosperity, the freedom, the acknowledgement, basically able to climb the ladder to the good life and be in touch with his own higher operating, his own higher consciousness in being and allowing himself to get to this space. So he had the self-validation, that which was not given to him by another. He did not have a penny emotionally from this person. Basically, if you look at it that way, he had to fire his own self up. He took 100% responsibility and accountability for himself, despite the lack of support, despite it all. He was able to give to himself what was not given to him by this covert narcissist. And so that's exactly it, is to understand that the entitlement does not fade away. It does not get lessened with time. In fact, it gets more accentuated or, worse or severe or more pronounced with time. The entitlement, I'm your elder. This is what I expect. And then everyone else is to take care of. I mean, they set up the wheels into motion so that this becomes, these become the moving parts then. These become the characters in the life, those people who will acquiesce and be there. So the entitlement, though, is oftentimes fraught with deprivation. And this deprivation oftentimes is the cessation of your needs. So you're feeling like you're not where you should be. The entitlement comes coupled with that. So that is the effect that is created by this cause. So the entitlement creates this real sort of feeling of you are not good enough and that not receiving of love. So it's really kind of like this. Those people who go to church and feel that, they're in the presence of a superior being, a superior intelligence, the divine source, and feel perhaps that it's only encased in that church, and that are trembling, are dwarfed by or felt inferior by or begin to cry at this superior being. It's kind of like that is how a covert narcissist will tend to make you feel, that you're in the presence of something greater, so you should just basically listen and do as you are told. So there's this very much sort of adapting to the standards of others or conforming to these person's standards, even though they are not internalized. There's this externalization. And so unless you understand that superior intelligence is within you, that divine order, that divine presence is within you. It's not just encased in this person. It's not encased only in this church. It is within you. It is within the cells and DNA of your very being, that this higher superior intelligence is what you are. The covert narcissist, through entitlement, they will not allow you to see, reflect, and live this. So that's part of the problem with the entitlement is they're always one above. They're always seven above. Whatever, ladder rung they are above, they're always going to keep that ball into play. In other words, they're going to keep it into play as long as they can. And oftentimes that is through the entitlement, the body language, that you don't deserve my attention. You don't deserve my support. In fact, I might even downplay or criticize or give you the the silent treatment. It is, not what they say, it's what they don't say. And this entitlement is the cause thereof. And if you've been around it, and you've begun to push it away and say, no, I'm not playing that game, I'm not being intimidated, that can be the first step to your liberation, is to say, I'm not intimidated, I'm not fearful, I'm not trembling. To acquiesce and to give in is not worth my time. I recognize and validate that there is something good about me. Even though you have not validated and given it to me, I have to discover this on my own and know this on my own. So that is oftentimes what the healing journey, that is what understanding these individuals is about. It's to understand the cause that's created the effect, the very being, that you feel intimidated, inhibited by, held back by. It is the healing, the wholeness, which is to release your inhibitions, to go for the understanding that the superior intelligence, your higher self, resides within you. So it's an awakening or opening up of this. And to come into that is to know that oftentimes it is the emptiness or lack which allows, that to fill you up. And so sometimes it needs to, you need to arrive at that emptiness or that safety within. So, and the safety can oftentimes be the very void of this individual, because if they aren't with you there, then they are not with you. If they're not with you or close to you in the silence, in the emptiness, in your being, then they are not with you. So it's just what, like they say, it is what it is. If you can be in the emptiness of your being, the feeling of, maybe lack or just, really emptiness or just your pure being state. This is actually your higher consciousness. A lot of people say this is fearful. Well, it shows you where you are in your journey if you are fearful. So give yourself a body scan, give yourself a feeling test. Am I fearful while I'm alone? Am I fearful if I'm not with this person? Am I fearful by the retaliation or what's going to happen if I don't acquiesce to this person? If you're fearful, then this is showing you that this is the area where you need to heal and where you need to actually bring feelings of safety and confidence and trust into that feeling. The entitlement, creates that feeling of void and fear. Basically, false evidence appearing real. See, they can control you through entitlement, and as if they have and you don't. They have and you don't. There's always a win-lose proposition with someone who is narcissistic. I'm going to win here and you're going to lose here. It's all about letting you know that and rubbing it in. So you have to exit the win-lose proposition. You have to exit the entitlement proposition. You have to stop over-idealizing them, as John Bradshaw says in his book, Healing the Wounded Inner Child. You have to stop projecting the over-idealization of these individuals and give to yourself that balanced, not the degraded, not over-idealized, the balanced credibility thereof. You have to give yourself that I am presence, that you can, you will, and you are. In the present moment is really the place to begin to feel this, acknowledge and call it into being. So you have to call that safety in. You have to call that confidence. You have to call that certainty. The uncertainty is really when you're on the pins and needles that this person in that entitlement, the gulf, the, tremendous silence of your own soul, the tremendous silence of your own purpose, that is really what is the hurt. That is what is perpetuating the suffering. And so the entitlement is to think, that you don't need to play into that. You don't need to play into the hands. And it is okay if you don't satisfy their narcissistic ego needs. It's okay if you don't puff them up. It's okay if you don't give in. It's okay if you don't play the charades. It's okay if you're not one of the flying monkeys. It's okay if you are different. It's okay if you are independent. So that entitlement is very easy to play into. It's part of the love bombing. And the love bombing cycle can repeat and repeat and repeat in many cycles throughout the life of your relationship. So it's to say back off. is to back it off. I'm not playing this. And so how, we really look into the tools here. We're not getting stuck in the anger. Yeah, you can be angry, you can be resentful, you can say, I missed, you ruined me, these are times in my life. You are staying stuck in the struggle when you stay stuck in the anger. Yes, the anger is there. If you want to do a whole video on being angry, well, we can get really angry and pissed off that life is this way and it shouldn't be this way and this is not fair and I didn't deserve my fair cut and I deserve better and I should have had more. If you do, you're just digging yourself deeper. You're just engaging in mental anguish that's driving the hole deeper. So it is to understand you're trying to come out of that and transform and alchemize that. And so it is to understand, and the healing is saying, you know what? Maybe it should have been this way. Maybe I am right where I need to be. Maybe what I'm wanting to have in my life is not meant to be in my life quite yet. So it is to really speak those where it should have been this way. It is this way. I'm not meant to have it quite yet. And as soon as you can embrace that and then move forward towards your goal, you'll oftentimes realize that you free up then the energy, the solutions. You then live in your higher being, your higher intelligence, your prefrontal cortex, your solution center. You're engaging your intuition and saying, you know what, maybe it is. Maybe I am setting on the right course. Maybe this did happen for a reason. And those people who really succeed, those people who have really had, a loss of time, a loss of money, a loss of relationships, a loss of affection, you will then, if you can then take that as a lesson learned, as I talk about in the book that I'm writing, and then realize, how can I profit emotionally from this? In other words, how can I really get ahead emotionally because of this? How can I get ahead and become stronger spiritually because of this? How can I become a better person because of this? How can I become stronger? How can I become more talented? How can I become more gifted? How can I awaken the giant or that genius within me now that this has happened? Now, how can I expand and enlarge myself on a really deep level because of this? And to begin that feeling is to say, you know what, maybe this was meant to happen. And when you do that, when you say that to yourself, how does that feel? Right now in the privacy of this video. Maybe this was meant to happen. Maybe this is for the greater good. Maybe this is going to result in a stronger clarity and the good life for me. And so if you can do that, oftentimes people feel very frightened of success. So if you are frightened of success, you can put up your hand and say, that is it. I'm frightened of the success, or I'm frightened of the freedom. I am, otherwise it's like, I embrace the success. I embrace the freedom. I embrace where this is going. You're embracing that divine superior intelligence within you. It's not only residing in this individual, it also is called forth into you. But that presence, that purpose, that meaning oftentimes is not enacted, validated, supported in a relationship with a narcissist who wants to keep others here and them up the ladder. So to, bring yourself up, to raise yourself up, to parent yourself is to nurture and to speak to your inner self like you would a wounded child. So like they say in the Bible, be as children. So if you can get to that sort of playful aspect of yourself, as if you're picking yourself up from just, scraping your knee. We were all kids who scraped a knee. I don't doubt that there's anyone who is watching this right now does not remember when they were 5, 6, 7, 4, 3, 9, they fell on the sidewalk and scraped their knee. They had to go to their mother and get the Band-Aid, get the ointment, wash it off, feel the sting. So it is that, attending to that wound, that is the feeling, the presence that you need to have to really be there for your inner wounded self. It might hurt, it might sting, it might be bright red, you might have like a really deep scab, you might be just feeling like you're scarred, the scar hasn't healed yet, it's still kind of bright pink, or you still need the Band-Aid, but you need to kind of embrace yourself in this manner, in this feeling, as if you're embracing a wounded little child, and be as a child, and be kind of as the giver to yourself in this, and realize this person kind of, there was a letdown, or this person is how they are. And so you need to kind of pick up that momentum, pick up the rhythm, pick up the momentum that was like in that huge gap, that huge, that deadening silence, the horn section that couldn't blow in your favor, the drum section that couldn't beat and drum roll you when you made a huge achievement, or you had a phenomenal time, or something was awakened within you, whatever wasn't celebrated. You didn't hear the violins, singing you into your commencement, into your graduation, into your next stage, or the most, going to the next level of your life. They weren't able to take you to that next level, either in your health, or in your travel, or your income, or your career, or your family. You weren't able to have that next generation of your family. You weren't able to pass on your name. So embrace yourself in that. Realize then that you need to awaken that superior intelligence within you. It's not just in the church. It's not just at that one altar. It's not in that one temple. It's not in that mosque. Those are manifestations that have been built to honor and have been designed in divine order. So you can go and then, perhaps that would be a great idea for a recovery date, would be to go and ponder and look at an off schedule time when it's not just, or you can even go during the, go during worship, but perhaps take a tour of a beautiful mosque, or a church, or a temple, something that is magnificent, and going and soak that in, and to see that that is within you. It is your eyes beholding it. It is not someone else's eyes. It is your heart beholding it. It is not someone else's heart. It is your lungs that are breathing in the air that has been also the air that was that of the builders, the designers, the people who then prophesized the presence thereof. So begin to even engage in that in person, hands-on. Go touch the marble, go touch the walls, go take it in, and see what uplifts you. You can find that, then this awakens this divine order within you, and to realize that that entitlement is just within this one individual. It's not at your world at large. So it's time for you to open up and broaden your perspective. If you have been, and then get luck back on your side. Get the momentum of your healing back on your side. That's why I say it's so important for you to engage in the tools in a percussive manner. In other words, begin to keep this going in your life like this. You need to keep the affirmations going. You need to get the recovery dates going. You need to do the writing. You need to do your lessons learned. You need to do your astromations. Yes, we're going to do a video just on astromations, but these are the things that you need to keep your tools engaged, all laid out like in a tool belt. You need to keep your tool belt, your recovery tool belt, going in this momentum, especially if you've had a lack of momentum, or sort of deadened spots, hurt spot, the silent treatments. It could have been for years. And this concept was first introduced by Janet White in Adult Children of Alcoholics. And she talks about in her book how those people who are parents who are alcoholic parents, and they're in the drug of their choice, alcohol, and they're not there for their children. Basically, there's such a lack of communication that it creates a lack of momentum in that family dynamic. And then so those children don't have sort of that ability to have speech or communication or feeling. So they suffer, they become, like rebellious children. They become the troubled child. And so I think it's very similar in the covert narcissist, or even the overt narcissist, where there is not this allowing of you. So to get your empowerment back, again, is to get that momentum, to get that perspective back for yourself, and then to introduce and face your fears from this new heightened level, and also coupled with this feeling of safety. It is safe to create, it is safe to ask, It is safe to go to the next level. It is safe. You have to, a lot of people then resist, the lessons learned. They want to live in the denial. So it's to acknowledge the lessons learned, and it's to get what is yours, and it's to know what you want to be yours, and it's to go and get it. What is it that is yours? What is it that you want? What is it that is meaningful? What is it that you're looking for? And this you need to then strive for and then keep your focus on. And so if it's communication, if it's validation, if it's intimacy, if it's hugs, if it's silence, if it's something monetary, if it's something nostalgic, if it's something that's an heirloom, if it's something that is a travel, you need to identify this. It's to awaken up what is the unspoken, that is really part of the healing and part of the mystery and part of the excitement. And that is really what the recovery journal is about. When you are able to do that free-form writing, you're able to hear from a new aspect of yourself, which has been pushed down, repressed, shut down, moved aside, not listened to. All of a sudden, you feel these new aspects of yourself that exist that you didn't even know existed. I didn't know that I wanted to travel. I didn't know that I wanted to start, and go to a Save a Pet foundation, save the environment. I didn't realize that I'm an environmentalist. How can I express this now? I didn't realize that I was a naturalist. I want to express this now. I didn't realize I was interested in building. How can I get more tools? How can I how can I then become a craftsman or a craftswoman? How can I take this desire? Maybe you like to read, then maybe you could join a meetup group where you have reading discussions on books. Maybe you could host this. If you're not there, maybe you can get there. So it's identifying what are the next levels of your healing. So it's to understand, where do you want to go from here? That is what positive orderly direction thinking is all about. It's what I call the trajectory of your life. It's kind of like a spaceship, a rocket. So on the ground they have a trajectory of its flight. Any sort of millimeter off, it's as the trajectory, as it goes farther and farther and farther, that little millimeter is going to make a huge impact. It's going to miss its target. So you have to understand that you are responsible for now the trajectory of your life as regards to the entitlement issues that you have experienced with this person. Someone who is entitled and acting as if they know better, have more, have the final say, know what is right for you beyond your own thinking. And so you have to then fill this gap. You have to fill this void with the percussiveness and get the momentum going if there is that sort of deadened silence. It's the entitlement, the fact of having the right to something. So in other words, it's saying, I have the right to this land, even though it's not your land. So the belief that one is inherently deserving of privileges or special treatment. So do you know what I'm saying? And so you're giving special treatment to an abuser. You're giving special treatment to someone who is not deserving. You want to give them fair and just treatment. And oftentimes that is to give self-respect, is what's going to give them fair and just treatment. So it's gaining self-respect. And self-respect is only founded and developed by having boundaries and standards. Creating the boundaries which have been enmeshed or annihilated or blurred out by an entitlement. Someone who feels that they have the right to. So it's to call forth, to really resolve this, you have to call and call out exactly what the problem is. I'm no longer a victim to your entitlement. I'm no longer an object of your scapegoating. I'm no longer going to remain the second fiddle. I'm no longer going to think that money is going to solve everything. I'm no longer just going to be here whenever you want to dump on. It is speaking these facts, your truth, to the person who needs to hear it. So you basically need to have the emotional intelligence to communicate it out, to stop it from being. It is the awakening of that quiet space, that subconscious, which has been, the shutdown horn section for so long. I couldn't think of the word section earlier. As you see in an orchestra, I have a friend who's really developed an incredible music, orchestrated music production for disadvantaged children. And what he's done there is absolutely miraculous. So was just looking at that the other day, and he has so many children involved, and it's just amazing what he's been able to do in terms of getting people the space, the opportunity, the publicity, the actual instruments. So he's been granted. It's just amazing, the work, but it takes a lot of sections, in your life to really orchestrate your power. So the section of your life, that one, if you could look at a big band or a big orchestra, and if you were to see that those were all kind of like instruments within you, looking to be drummed up, looking to be, awakened, inspired, what part of you, what section of you has been sort of silenced? What part of you doesn't have the musicians coming in and beginning their instruments? What part of you has not been instrumentalized? What is the inner instrument of you which has not really gone and been heard, validated, admired, recognized, respected? So begin to bring that up within yourself. See what that is and write it down. Write it down and act on it. It is lessons learned and applied that will set you free and liberate you from that wound, that void that you have felt. Your buddy, peace and harmony with you here today. Hope that these videos do help. Please share, subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support. Peace out. Love you.